Good morning. It's about 5:30 in the morning, and I am back in the little coastal town of Vareid on the western coastline of Lofoten, Norway. And this is a location that I've been to, or at least this general area, I've been to twice now. And this is now my third visit. And the reason I keep coming back here is because of these fantastic peaks back here behind me. They truly are just amazing. And I don't know how else to put it. I've shot this twice now. First time wasn't particularly, it was okay. But I'm giving it another, I think that was thunder. But I'm giving it another go today because it's a really special place, and I'm just very much trying to find exactly the right composition. And so the challenge isn't so much finding a foreground here, because there clearly is one, but rather finding the part of foreground that complements the peak in the back the best. It's a lot like just design in general. It's designing a scene and designing the bottom half of your image to hopefully find some kind of pattern, some kind of line, some kind of rhythm, something that leads the eye up into the peaks into the back, so that hopefully you get a dynamic image that has some energy and some flow, which goes all the way from the bottom of the photo all the way up to the top. So I'm going to quit talking here because I don't really trust the weather, and I think it might start hailing here again in a minute. So I'm going to look around a little bit more and hopefully take some photos.
So this photo for me is a really good example of an image that just ended up being so much more than what I thought it was going to be at the time that I captured it. It's easy to get really excited about the photos that you're creating, and then you can go back and you look at them later and you might realize that some of those photos that you were really excited about turned out to be not particularly great for one reason or another. This image, however, is one that completely took me by surprise. I just started editing it. I started pulling out some shadows. I added a little bit of clarity to the peaks in the back, which helped bring out some of that morning light that was coming out from behind the peaks, because this was taken at somewhere around, I think, about 5:15, 5:30 in the morning. And I brought out these details and the image just suddenly came to life. I mean, you have these wonderful rocks, this texture of all this seaweed around them. Then you have the water bubbles on top of the seawater that is just slowly kind of moving around the rocks. And then you have these waves that are crashing in from the ocean. And it was just this scene that was, you know, very cold and very blue and dark and very dramatic. And for me, this image, just with honestly very little manipulation, just really seemed to work and just really came to life in a way that I didn't expect it to at all when I was out taking this photo. So I'm just really pleased with how this particular image turned out.
Yeah, so at this point it is really starting to happen now. Getting a bunch of hail coming from this direction. And I'm just trying to squeeze off just a few more photos here if I can. And my lens is completely covered in water right now, and I'm sure they don't look very good. So at any rate, beautiful morning, another very wet, icy, insane morning in Lofoten, Norway. That was a really good way to start the day today. Absolutely gorgeous. It is just fantastic. I love this place. I may I may end up coming back out here again because I just like it so much. It's still beautiful. The light is just too blown out now. The highlights are too strong. The sun is too high in the sky now, and image just won't be as good. So I think I've done enough here this morning, so I'm going to move on. There's some more lakes and things down this way, and I'm going to see if there's anything worth shooting on my way back to town. Hopefully get some coffee on my way back too. It's a little bit later in the day now. It's still hailing. It is. The weather's still kind of miserable, but in general, it's not the worst. My Osmo Pocket is just. I think it's just completely trashed after this trip. I have put this thing through a beating, and unfortunately, it's gotten some sand lodged into some of the little crevices on the gimbal. And I can't quite get it out, and so the gimbal kind of acts weird when it's trying to follow, and oh man, it's a bit of a mess, quite honestly. Between Iceland and Lofoten, neither one of those countries are really designed for electronics. Early this morning I did a blue hour shot, which I look back at a little bit later and I'm pretty happy with. And right now, I'm hiking around one of the fjords that is in this general area, and you can see all of this behind me here. And it's just fantastic. What's really amazing about it is the color, because Lofoten is right along the Gulf Stream. Most of the water here does not freeze. It never gets cold enough to freeze. Only the kind of like thinner edges of it start to crackle with ice and get a little more wintry looking, but the rest of it out that way, out that way, is kind of an aquamarine color, and it almost looks like you're in Hawaii or the Caribbean or something, but you're anything but in those places right right now, because it is very wintry. It's very cold. And but it's absolutely fantastic. The snow has been melting and being washed out by some of the rain that's been coming through, and it's been revealing all this fantastic rock and moss and grass and all kinds of like seaweed. It's just a really, really great color. Just color that I just, for whatever reason, really like. And the scene that I'm shooting right now, hold this over my head here, as you can see, is this one. And there's this really awesome little grouping of grass that's right here. And a little bit of it just happens to kind of come down vertically this way a little bit, which is nice. And then you have this kind of cluster of rocks right here, and then a few more rocks in the midground, and then of course we have the water, and then the peak off in the back. And so for me, it's one of those classic vertical landscape compositions where you have something of interest to hold each area of the frame going all the way up. So I've migrated my way a little bit further out towards the water, and I'm really glad that I did, because what's out here you couldn't see from where I was before. And that's this really awesome little cluster of elements here. You have these reflecting pools of water, you have the black rocks, you have moss, you have this really awesome yellow grass which just kind of swirls and moves around almost like a Van Gogh, like paintbrushes would. And it's just really fantastic.
I returned to this fjord around the small town of Vareid over and over again, day after day, because it was such a dynamic environment. I never got bored with it. Every time I was there, I would discover new compositions, new ways of interpreting the scene. And on top of that, the weather would literally change hour by hour, which would affect the light and the color and the mood and the atmosphere. I just loved being here and being part of this environment. Something that I've learned through experiences like this one in Lofoten is that one of the keys to creating successful photos is familiarity. Just showing up at a beautiful location, even at the most perfect time of day, does not at all guarantee success. It takes time and effort and a lot of trial and error to understand a landscape and discover everything it has to offer. And the more opportunities I have in that one location, the greater my odds are of coming away with at least a few good photos that I'm happy with. And besides, at the end of the day, I'd much rather own a few good photos than a bunch of disappointing ones, which were created because I tried to just capture too many things in too many locations, which is really easy to do when you're traveling. Slowing down, I feel, and focusing your attention can, at least for me, lead to better overall results. Thanks for being here. I hope you enjoyed this video. See you next time.